I'm Rob, Robert Perry Cruz, and I am here. This is our fifth time, I think, presenting here at the Thompson Center Conference. We're very excited, and I'm here with my fabulous co-hosts who can yell out their name real quick, but they don't have a mic.
I'm Jackie because it's 2022, so I get to say it second in 2022. I'll be back to last in 2023.
And I'm Diana, also Perry Cruz, and I feel like you should get 5 years of going first.
That works. Or you have to do the hey everybody though. That's my thing.
Yeah.
You have to add that in.
Yeah. Well, you still get to intro.
Oh, okay. Well, welcome. Thank you so much for coming to listen to our talk. Today we're going to be talking about quality of life and choosing quality of life goals for your clients. An introduction, I think it is called, in the program, probably because this is a topic that has some research, but not as much as other areas. So there's still a lot of discussion and debate to have regarding what constitutes quality of life. So we hope that we're going to be able to illuminate you with some of what is known today to bring back to your own practices. So this would be a picture of us, but you can see that we're here right now. There was something happened when we sent the picture. So it's either the words ABA Inside Track or a picture of us. But you can see us, so I guess we don't need the visual.
But that's my fault.
Okay, Diana will take blame on that one. Thank you, Diana. So if you've never heard of us before, our day job, we do have a variety of jobs. Diana and Jackie are both professors. I work in a public school system in Massachusetts. And as our hobby, we read research articles and we discuss them over the internet through our podcast, ABA Inside Track. It was originally something that we put together rather than trying to get people to come to a journal club that was poorly attended. And I said, well, if I just put it on the internet, no one will know that nobody came because it's really just the three of us. And so we've been very fortunate to have more than the 2 or 3 people that would come in person listen to the show. And we've got all of you here today. So thank you very much for making my dream come true. So that's who we are. Our objectives for our talk today, we are going to go through a lot of information about quality of life, and by the end, we hope, and our goal certainly is, that all of you can state a definition of quality of life, that you can identify some meaningful quality of life markers for your clients, and you'll be able to discuss the advantages of considering how you can incorporate quality of life into developing treatment goals for your clients and their caregivers. So we're going to start with a little exercise for everyone out there. I want everyone to take a moment. You can close your eyes, leave your eyes open, whatever is most comfortable for you. But I want you to imagine that you are 90 years old. You're reaching the end of your lifespan. You are... We could have said 100 have been optimistic. Pick an age in which you think you'll be ending your lifespan. I'll go for 100. That sounds better. And you are in your bed, doesn't have to be your deathbed, but we're getting to that point. And you are thinking about everything that's gone on before you in the past however many years. You're looking back, imagining, and saying to yourself, I've had a nice life. What is it you're thinking about? Take a second. I'm guessing some of you are maybe thinking about your family, your loved ones. Maybe that they're there with you while you're, ending, your days are ending. There's no easy way to sugarcoat that one. Maybe you're thinking about some great invention that you put together that helped the world, and there's crowds outside singing your praises. Maybe you're just thinking about some fun hobbies that you did with some of your best friends, and then you kept up with them over the years. Just good times. Maybe you are thinking about some of the volunteer work you did on the weekends that was challenging and stressful at times, but benefited others who maybe had less than you did. Maybe you're thinking about some good work colleagues that you created some awesome research or put together your clinic with.
Can I tell you?
What were you thinking about?
I was thinking about all the good food that I hope I will have eaten.
Okay, you'll be thinking of all the good food. That time we drank around the world at Epcot Center. Yeah. With family and friends. Jackie, do you want to share yours? What do you think?
I was thinking about my 1.5-hour commute one way to my job.
Ooh.
Just kidding. But that's not something we'd be thinking about.
So we have a picture here. This is the Marquis de Mailly, who was killed in the French Revolution and is mostly famous because I think there's a meme regarding his last words, which were seeing his death sentence, were, "I see that you have made 3 spelling mistakes." I'm guessing most of you didn't think about something as pedantic as that. Most of you probably were not thinking, oh, all the time I could have been at work ignoring everything else in my life, developing my clinical behavior analytics skills. That's all I wanted to do, and I'm glad that's all I did, and I ignored everything else in my life. Anyone raise a show of hands? Did anyone have that as their answer? No, okay, yeah, haha. It's okay if you liked going to work. It's okay if you thought well of your clinical skills. But I bet it wasn't the only thing you thought of. And that really brings us to what we're going to be talking about today in terms of quality of life. So what might indicate that you have a high or low quality of life? Well, here are some kind of categories that come up in many of the discussions regarding quality of life, and certainly we'll be talking about a lot of them today. And for all of us, we sort of have this pie chart of how we spend our time. And in each of those various pie charts, you're going to have, or pie wedges, you're going to have certain amounts of time that you consider more or less important. We'll fill and widen those wedges or narrow them. Some of these I think we would all agree on. Yes, happiness, I want that to be a measure of my quality of life. But a lot of them are going to be subjective. Not all of us are as interested in building strong friendships. Not all of us are as interested in our personal health. We sort of just take it for granted that we'll live forever, and we sort of go about our business. We don't think about it too much. And for our clients, it's no different than it is for all of us here. They're going to have a variety of areas in their life that are more or less important to them, and that are going to be more or less tied to what we would think of as improving their quality of life, or what they would think of, I should say, as improving their quality of life. Now, some of us might have some preconceived notions about what that would be. I'm sure a lot of us coming to this conference, our clients are mainly autistic individuals, their families. And we may think, well, if I had to guess, I bet maybe the friendship wedge might not be as important. They have some very specific interests, but maybe friendship's not one of them. And I think one of the things we're going to challenge you to do while we talk about quality of life is to think about how many times you may have filled in this circle for your clients regarding their quality of life based on maybe preconceived notions or myths. I think there's a note here that I know Diana had mentioned. There's a good TEDx talk by Daniel Wendler about the myth of the autistic individual not caring as much about friendship or never feeling lonely. How much of us, even though we've been in the field and we know that that isn't necessarily the case, might have made some assumptions in filling out the pie chart for quality of life for our clients. So we're going to keep talking. We're going to keep coming up to the idea of what is quality of life. Now, for all of you, I'm sure a lot of you out there, we have a lot of BCBAs, I'm assuming, in this talk, right? I'm seeing a lot of nodding heads. We are. We are all BCBAs up here as well. Okay, quality of life sounds good. I get it. It's something that's important, but what is it? How do I see it? What's the objective measurement of quality of life? And we're not going to end this talk telling you, here's exactly what it is, and you can go home. It was a great presentation here in the morning talking about imitation. It was a really great assessment. We're not going to be able to give you that because the research just isn't out there for all of that. There's a lot of research regarding it, but we don't have all the answers. There was actually these kind of topics of what quality of life is came from a question and answer session on the Association for Science and Autism Treatment website by a lot of folks at the Melmark organization. It's a private school up in our neck of the woods in New England, where someone asked, how do I measure quality of life? Or how do I know my clients have a good quality of life? And they came up with, looking at the research they had, these as sort of the areas that we want to be thinking of. Emotional well-being, which a lot of us would probably just say, like happiness, being happy. Social well-being, often anything that would be associated with our connections with other people, maybe our relationships, friendships. Our physical well-being, how do we feel? Are we getting enough exercise? Are we able to engage in the movement type activities we want to? Self-determination, i.e. our choices in life and what we do and how we spend our time. Our social inclusion, so not so much our specific relationships, but our engagement with the wider community around us. Our own personal development. What are the skills that we value? Are we getting better at those skills? Are we engaging in new skills that we didn't know we cared about? Are we attaining more independence through our ability to meet our own goals regarding those skills? and then our goals towards our own personal rights and our own search for dignity in the wider world. And again, that was Parenti et al. 2019. Got a chance to reread it preparing for the talk last night. It's a really great one. It'll be in our references as well, but that also sums all of these kind of concepts up. Now, when you look at this list, I'm guessing a lot of you, when you're thinking about how do I plan or how do I work with my clients on their treatment goals, I bet you see a few of these and say, oh, I'm good at that. And I'll be honest, I think as behavior analysts, we're super good at that personal development. What are the barriers to independence? What are the skill deficits or the areas where skill acquisition isn't going as quickly as our client would like? We're really good at pinpointing and figuring out how to make those improvements. But what about social well-being? Maybe, we do a lot of social skills training in our practices, I'm sure. What about emotional well-being? Well, how many of you, when you hear the word happiness, say, if I can't see it, it doesn't exist? I don't want to talk about happiness. Let's leave that to psychology, or let's leave that to some other field, right? When we think about these as being factors related to quality of life, we probably aren't targeting all of these as much as our clients might want, or as much as we might even think about in terms of helping them achieve a high degree of quality of life, or happiness, or enjoyment, or whatever the word you want to use, quality of life. So while we do a lot, are we doing all that needs to be done to target quality of life? And again, this is the challenge that we're giving to you, that we give to ourselves in our own work. Where can we do more?
Thank you, Rob. Hi, everyone. I'm Diana, and I'm taking over. Did you change the slide?
I did not change it yet, no.
Okay, sorry.
Do you want me to do it?
I can probably handle it. Thank you. All right, and I'm taking over talking about this part here because I'm just really passionate about it, and I really wanted to harp on it a little bit with us all here together. So I know that the things that are listed here, you're like, well, these all make sense, right? Like, that's the nice thing about defining quality of life is the words quality of life already have meaning to us. We don't need to necessarily take them out of context and redefine them operationally. The concept of quality of life makes sense, right? So you're looking at this list and you're like, yeah, these totally make sense to me. And many of them I'm probably targeting in one way or another. But I think what we want to bring to this conversation is thinking about quality of life as an entire concept when we view our interactions with our clients and our ultimate goals for them and how we might perceive a quote-unquote good outcome. So good outcome is a term that is often used in the EIBI literature. I'm going to show you a slide about it in a second. And there are certain measures that are generally thought of when we think about good outcome. And they're quite different than the things that might be listed on this slide when we talk about quality of life. So what I want to challenge us is to bring into that conversation about what does it mean to, quote unquote, have this be successful for this person, and bring into that conversation what quality of life is and means for them. Now, if you are, haven't encountered a lot of information about quality of life before, or haven't necessarily thought about it, and you're trained as we are as behavior analysts, then it's weird for me to talk about an outcome measure that is potentially hard to define, right? Because we want things to be easy to define. We want to talk about things in terms that are observable and measurable, and that we can look at point A in time and then measure, look at point B in time and say, look, I've made a change, right? And that's how I know that we have succeeded in what we were doing. We love that stuff. I love it too. I love me some good data. And we want our data to be quantitative and objective. What's funky about a lot of these quality of life measures, right, is that they, by their very definition, cannot be quantitative and objective because they are qualitative and subjective instead. I can't look at someone else and say, I can tell just by looking that you've got all of your quality of life needs met, right? Because I can name off the pieces of the pie chart, but I can't necessarily order those for someone else and say, this has got to be your most important thing, right? There are individual gradations that are going to be present within that pie chart. Some things may be a lot more important to one person, some things may not be as important to another person. And how they decide if that quality measure is being met is also going to be individualized. So I might say, friendships is really important to me, and it's going to be a big part of my pie, but I'm like a total introvert. And I don't actually need that many friends. I have 2, and they're here, right? And that like fills me up. I'm like good to go. But Jackie is a total extrovert. How many friends do you have, Jackie?
I don't know.
Right, she has like a million. So many best friends, and I'm okay with that. It's okay.
We had to talk.
We've talked about it, and it's fine, right? So we have different needs in that area. Friendship's important to both of us, but how we're going to define "quote unquote" success in that category is different for us, and that's totally okay. But it's subjective, right? It's going to be dependent on some additional factors that might be a little bit challenging for us to fully define. So I'm bringing this conversation in now because you as a behavior analyst may be saying, hang on, like quality of life is fine, I like it fine, but I want a way to measure it. And I totally respect that. But I want us to come into this with the idea too that valuing subjective measurement is not new for our field because we have something that we already value a lot that is a subjective measure, and that's social validity. Social validity has been around a real long time, right? We can go all the way back to the Mont-Wolf 1978 article where he breaks down social validity into actually 3 different parts. I'm sorry I don't have this on the slide. But social validity isn't just what we often define it as, which is did the people that, the caretakers, did they approve of the outcome of this, right? There's actually multiple parts to social validity. The first part is the things that we've selected to target. Does everyone who's important, client, caregiving team, right, agree that these are the things that we should be targeting? That's number 1. Number 2 is the way in which we go about producing this change for this target is approved by everybody involved. That is an important one, and we're not talking about enough, I think, in our field. Number 2, the means by which, right? And then number 3 is the one that people usually think of about social validity. Does everyone involved approve of the outcomes? Okay? But all of those pieces, we're talking about like approval, right? Approval, you can't measure that very well. It's like, I gotta ask you, do you approve, right? And then you tell me yes or no on a 1 to 7 Likert scale, how much you approve. But there's a subjective system there. We're measuring it, we're quantifying it with a number, but it's based ultimately in subjectivity. However, many of us in this room are applied behavior analysts, right? It's that applied piece that's really critical. And without demonstrating behavior change that's socially meaningful for our clients, we're not doing that applied part, and we're not doing what we should be doing as behavior analysts, right? But it's subjective. So our entire field, we love data, we love science, and I love it too, right? But in order for us to hang meaning on all of that awesome objectivity, it's actually balanced on a subjective measure, which is that we're doing something meaningful. Okay, so that's just an aside to get you on board with the idea that quality of life is important. And I think that it is. My summary point related to this is just because something is hard to measure doesn't mean that it's not important. Right? There's lots of things in this world that are hard to measure, but it doesn't mean that they're not important. We as behavior analysts should first of all accept their importance and then figure out how difficult it's going to be to measure and what is a decent enough way that we can measure it, that we feel like we're doing a good job. So that's how quality of life can add to our interactions with our clients. And we can also take some of those measures that Rob just described on the preceding slides and give some level of objectivity to our measurement systems related to them. You might have to get creative in thinking about them. have given us some thoughts here as well, and we can, debate them in the future about whether these are good or not, but looking at where someone lives and how happy they are with that living arrangement, what social opportunities they have outside of their family, what employment/activity level are they engaging in their community, what types of self-advocacy skills do we see for them, and even what indices of happiness are that they're demonstrating to us. Any of those could be part of our measurement systems that we create in order to evaluate quality of life. Now, if you're familiar with this area, I'm not saying that there aren't already systems out there to measure quality of life, because there are, and they're all, maybe not all, but most of them are listed over here on the side. They all involve some variation on the acronym QOL, as you'll see. And so these are already in existence. Many of them are pretty short and sweet, excuse me, and all of them are based on some type of subjective measure. So either it's a proxy report, so someone who's a caregiver knows the person well, is filling it out on their behalf and saying, I think that they're happy in this, and this way. Or it's a self-report where the person who we're asking about is filling it out for themselves. And of course, it's going to vary, right? If someone can fill those out for themselves, or maybe would require a proxy to do so. So these are already in existence, right? We do already have some ways of assessing quality of life, but as I mentioned before, we're just going into it with the notion that it is a subjective measurement system. Doesn't mean it's valueless, but it is subjective. And then here's where I wanted to bring us in to our discussion, bringing together the outcome measures that we often see utilized in our field, in the research related to outcome, and the idea of quality of life. So the slide I have here isn't particularly important because it's like I'm taking it out of context, but I have it up here. It's from Eldevik, an EIBI meta-analysis, because I want to show that we see outcome. All the little squares there have been moved over to your right-hand side because it's showing that individuals who received behavioral intervention are performing better than a control group on two particular measures. And those are, I believe, those are a measure of IQ, and those are a measure of adaptive behavior using something like the Vineland. So common outcome measures are very often IQ, and perhaps something like the Vineland and or educational placement, right? And those measurement systems may tell us something about our client, and we do see measurable, demonstrable change on those systems utilizing, or based on studies such as this, right? But it's not, and there are challenges related to IQ in particular as a standardized measurement system as well. So we can see that change occurs on these, but it does not tell us everything that we might want to know about how a person is feeling about the quality of their life, right? Just because you have a change in your IQ score over time doesn't automatically mean that you are happier or that you are more satisfied in your educational opportunities or your friendship opportunities or your involvement in the community, right? Etc. So you can be super smart and see a big change in IQ and still feel like you don't have control over your life or you're denied the opportunities that you would like to have. You could be super smart and have big changes in your IQ and still feel lonely and not feel like you're accessing friendships like you would like to. And if we just hang our hat on these types of measurement changes and say, look, behavior analysis is great, EIBI is great, look at this, we can make all of these big jumps, and these are representative of big jumps. Big jumps. Then we are missing out on a really important part of whether behavior analysis is producing the changes that we're claiming that it does. Because if a person's at point A, not happy, and not feeling like they have a good quality of life, and at point B, feeling the exact same way, then where's the social validity in that change, right? We need to ensure that not only have we helped them do better in school, if that was important, but also that we've improved their quality of life. Oh yes, I forgot to mention as well that IQ does not serve as a reliable predictor of quality of life measures, and that is something that we might want to look into more. Okay, Jackie, you're up.
Just kidding. Okay, so Diana just let us know that IQ is not a good predictor of quality of life. So how then can we predict what quality of life should be? So there's this assessment scale for positive character traits, developmental disabilities, and they rate a lot of traits such as courage, empathy, forgiveness, gratitude, humor. The first time I read this as a behavior analyst, I was like, oh my God, so many things to define. How am I going to define all of these, right? These are kindness, optimism, resilience. We have something with that, I think, right now. Self-control, self-efficacy. So some of these, you're like, yeah, I get it. Some of them, you're like, oh no, it's doomsday for me, right? But these are the things that actually are correlated or strong predictors of good quality of life. And so we have to, even though it's subjective, right, on both ends, we really need to be thinking about quality of life in terms of these predictors. Does my client demonstrate empathy toward others? Does my client demonstrate courage in unknown situations, right? And so we know that age, support level support, functioning level, although I don't like that terminology, right? But those are not strong predictors of quality of life. So trying to shift our focus to thinking about more subjective or individual characteristics that our clients are displaying to then hopefully measure whether they are satisfied in their life. I would hope someone would do that for me, right? Okay, so this is a sad slide. I'm just going to put it out there. It is a little bit of a bummer when we think about quality of life and the current results that we are seeing in the literature. So if IQ is not that quality predictor, what can we pull out? And so Barnard et al. 2001 surveyed 450 autistic adults across a variety of support and language levels. And they found, unfortunately, dismal results, right? So only 3% of the adults that were surveyed were living independently. 49% were living at home with their parents. That's okay, right? If you want to live with your parents, you do it, right? Everybody's living with their parents now. That's all we can do. But, you know, I don't live with my parents. I said that like it was, I have done it, not yet. You know, it might be soon, but. They said only 10% of the individuals said that they could complete daily living tasks without assistance. I think this one's unfortunate. Only 2 to 12% had full-time paying jobs. 31% of them had no social involvement outside of their family members. And 32% noted poor mental health, right? So it's no surprise that this is probably impacting our clients, both at the adult level and most likely, you know, at middle school level, at elementary school level. Like, you have to make sure that you're looking at it across the lifespan of an individual. And, you know, results weren't very, they were pretty the same when you're looking at the Seltzer and Cross 2002, right? That when you're looking at middle school and high school, only 14% of students reported socializing with someone at school at all, right? And that may or may not be okay, right? Someone may not actually want to socialize, and that's cool too, but if you want to and you're not, that's going to be unfortunate, right? And 98% of the surveillance said that they reported having difficulty making friends when they actually wanted friends, right? So that's an issue here. And so, whoa, got exciting there. So when we think about quality of life, and we look across the lifespan, we've got a lot of work to do, right? As behavior analysts, we need to be looking at those subjective measures and trying to figure out programming and resources that we can give the individual that they want and they have asked for, instead of what we want and what we have asked for, to support their overall quality of life. And so I think another thing to look at is when we're talking about quality of life with those other assessments, right? Those autistic individuals said that, and we said, oh man, that's pretty dismal. But who's deciding what quality of life means, right? So here, Ayer and al. 2017 evaluated 14 different quality of life studies and found lower quality of life for autistic individuals than their neurotypical peers. But one of those studies illustrated an interesting finding because one of the assessments was designed by an autistic individual and their results showed good or average quality of life, right, from the assessment that was created by the autistic individual. So there may be some differences in what we're measuring and how we're measuring with the interpretation of a social relationship, right? As Diana mentioned earlier, she only needs 2 friends and then she's good, right? Whereas if I only had 2 friends, I'd be like, what is my purpose, right? And so I think it's going to be important to figure out who is deciding whether you're having a good quality of life and how can we, instead of placing what we think might be important for quality of life on our clients, figuring out how we can have them convey what's important to them. And so Connie Martinez, she is a part of the People First Capital Group. She said quality of life is just a process of self-determination, right? The first thing for the professionals and the parents to understand is that we can have a good quality of life if we have control over our own lives and if we have the help we need to keep that control and independence in our own lives. So I think that's like really, when I heard that, I was like, oh, like I had to sit down for a minute, right? Like, just giving control and part of lives. Like you want control, I want control, our clients want control. Providing that control for them in whatever way we can, I think ultimately will be a first step in increasing overall quality of life. So here we are looking at some life-improving priorities for autistic populations. So this came from Roche in 2021, and it was a meta-analysis, but it came from an article, Simpson et al. 2021. It's like a double cross-reference, right? And so things that might help as evidence that the autistic population has asked for are training for employment that's going to fit their interests, right? Physical health, well-being, and mental health, specifically for the autism community, that may be different. The needs may be different for the autistic community than it is for any other community, right? Expertise, availability, and accessibility of service across the lifespan. We have really great EI services. We have great school services most of the time, but once you get in adulthood, right? Once you go to college, there's nothing a lot of the times, which is like shocking. You're like, I'm supported. And they're like, good luck. And they just throw you in, right? And so, providing that sort of support across the lifespan, providing resources and support at the workplace, at college, in your special interest groups, understanding what autism might look like across the lifespan. I think a lot of individuals don't know, how it might change, what it might look like, and having, a lot of more supports for transitioning into adulthood and what that might mean. So I think the nice thing about looking at this and then looking at our quality of life measures is that there's a good deal of overlap, right? With the quality of life measures that we talked about earlier, and looking at what are life-improving priorities for autistic individuals really gets down to support, accessibility, and services for them that they have decided they need.
Do you want to be a BCBA?
Sure, we all do.
Now you can come to Regis College in Weston, Mass. to get your graduate degree.
Choose from any one of these courses.
Masters of Science in Applied Behavior Analysis.
Masters of Science in Special Education.
Dual degree in Special Ed and ABA.
Or be eligible for your postmaster's certificate.
You can complete your degree and be ready to sit for the exam in 2 years. And our 2017 grads had a 100% pass rate on the BACB exam.
Come enjoy practicum placement support, ethics mini handbooks, PhD level professors, small class sizes, and a service trip to Iceland.
If interested, don't delay. Supplies are limited. Learn more at regiscollege.edu.
Again, that's www.regiscollege.edu, regiscollege.edu. One more time, www.regiscollege.edu. See you there! List that I have up here is from the article that Rob was referencing, which is in the ASAT Online by Parenti and colleagues, and it's really good, and you should go check it out. But they've put forth 4 ways that we as practitioners can help bring quality of life opportunities to our clients. And so I'm just have them up here so we can all kind of take a look at them together. The first one is make quality of life a priority. So if we are sitting at that table and are part of the conversation about determining what are going to be the foci, I love that word, for our client and the objectives that we might be going to work on, leading with quality of life could make all the difference in what ends up being the focus for that client, right? Thinking about what are supports that they might need in order to access this, or this. Or the example from Jackie's slide about training in vocational areas, right? That might be what we want to lead with if they're telling us that having a job is something that's important to them. So that one is almost just a mindset change, right? Going into those conversations, not being like, what are the deficits? What is it that we need to work on? But rather, how is this person experiencing life right now? What does their quality of life seem to be? And what can we listen and hear from them about what is important to them that they are experiencing? Throws us right into number 2, involving the individual maximally, another great word, in their treatment plan. Those conversations where you're sitting around the table, if your client can be present in those, then that is ideal. You want to hear from them, hear their voice, and have their input on what's important to them. That's like the whole idea of what we do. So we can practice what we preach by organizing things in this way. And I know many of you may be thinking, yes, of course, like if my client can tell me what they want, I'm going to ask them, right? And they'll tell me what they want, and then we'll plan to do that. That makes sense. And you may be saying that, and you may also be saying, but I work with a lot of clients that I don't know what they want, right? They don't have a good way of telling me what they want. And if that is the case, then we want to heavily focus our energies towards building communication for them, right? And I know that we all already do that. But making that our priority, and I'm going to talk in a little bit too about self-determination skills and ensuring that our clients have those as well. Let me grab this. So working towards communication, but then there are also ways that we can get creative. And I love being a behavior analyst because I feel like we get to approach problem solving from a really creative standpoint. So we can creatively go into problem solving mode to think about how can I determine what is important to my client. And Dr. Hanley has a lot of great suggestions on ways in which we can use behavior that our clients can currently exhibit and tell us what's important to them by arranging things so they can do concurrent selection, etc. So there are ways to find out what your client might want, but we may have to get creative in determining what those are. And that's okay. This is like the most important thing, right, is that we get this right. So if it takes time to get that answer to that question, then that's okay. We just need to start early so we can make plans. Number 3 is education and support for families. This is another area I think that we as behavior analysts recognize we want to do a good job at, and then aren't always sure how to do that. So creating an informational structure within your organization of ways that you can plan for families to get the information that they need from the beginning, their inception of their services with you, all the way through, and looking at and modifying what those resources are as their children age is critical to having families feel supported, that they're receiving the education that they need. I think it's also critical that we are using this type of terminology with families as well. Unlike some of the other terminology we try to use, this is actually like very family-friendly terminology, right? Quality of life. Yes, I got it. Good. But we should present it that way. We should talk about what the quality of the life should be for their client and how we can help ensure that that's happening and bring families into that conversation. Because if we're viewing it as a priority, we want them to view that as the priority for their child too. And it will allow us to have a shared language around that. And then finally, number 4, don't let the buck stop with you, right? Train your staff members too to be able to talk about this, view this as a priority, and it'll be a whole sea change in how we talk about the services that we provide for our clients. So top to bottom, culturally within your organization, you can present quality of life as a really important goal and encourage everyone to be working toward that. Parenti. And then there's another article called by Burgess and Gutstein, 2007, that I really like, and I pull from a good bit because I think that it's not just presenting the idea of what quality of life is, but it also goes further than that into talking some about how might we make plans for our younger clients to ensure that as they age, we're seeing opportunities for them across these quality of life measures, opportunities to learn what they need to learn, and that we're continuing to measure that over time. So Burgess and Goodstein break it down into 4, they have a 4-quadrant pie that they're using here. And they break things down into these 4 quadrants, and we can debate them if you want. Self-determination, social support, family life, and then academic success / employability. And like I said, they not only are just presenting these as like, these are ways to measure quality of life, but they kind of go into a little bit more and saying if we are going to want to use these as measures as our clients age, then we need to ensure that we're making plans for that when they're younger. So that's the approach here. So I'm going to walk us through the 4 quadrants, or Jackie's going to help me. So the first quadrant was talking about social supports. And here our authors in the Burgess and Goodstein study are making some of the same points that we made, or Rob made earlier as well, which is we need our clients to tell us what they want as far as social supports. Everyone's different. We shouldn't make assumptions here. And it may really be that it's in order to, look at this measure, quality of those social supports over quantity, right? You don't want just a million fake friends. You want to have some really meaningful relationships. And they actually went through and analyzed this as well. Lower quality friends were more predictive of loneliness for autistic children than neurotypical children. Lower quality meaning they weren't really like actual meaningful relationships established there. And you might say, well, easy fix. I'll just do some social skills training. Bada bing, bada boom, right? Social skills training is not easy. And it's also potentially problematic if we're only approaching it from a neurotypical perspective, right? This is what a friendship has to look like. This is how you act as a friend. I'm going to set it up like TA, right? If we are not teaching folks how to make those types of deeper, more meaningful relationships and only operating in that superficial realm, then we're unlikely to be increasing their quality of life in the long run. So what might be better than attempting to teach, the form over the function of a social relationship is teaching people how to find those common interests that they might share with someone else. And that could look any myriad number of ways. It doesn't have to be that my friendship looks like your friendship, right? And we should follow the lead of our clients. If they seem to be enjoying the relationship, then that's how we should encourage it to continue. Yeah.
I was at a training last week, and I went to a social skills training. She does a social skills and show and tell, because a lot of people on the spectrum have niche interests, right?
Yeah.
And she said it was the best thing she's ever done, because everybody got to bring their interests, and other people were like, "Oh my God, that's so cool! That's the neatest thing!" And so that common interest that we didn't think, like, she was kind of approaching it from teaching the neurotypical type of thing, and instead she opened it up, and they led
Yeah.
and it built, and she said it was the best thing she'd ever done, and it blew my mind. I was like, oh my gosh, that has opened up, and every week she does a show and tell, or every month or something, and it's their favorite activity.
Oh, that's so cool. Oh, I love that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I loved what Haley said this morning about info dumping and how we want to be respectful. And yeah, and that can be a really meaningful way to connect with someone, even if I hadn't thought of that before. So yeah, I love it. That's awesome. In a support of this area, I pulled this study by Ashbaugh and colleagues in 2017. I know it's probably whatever is up here is too small for you to necessarily read, but the participants in the study were 3 college students who self-reported feeling unsatisfied with their social college experiences. They all were on the spectrum. And what you're looking at on the graph over here on the side is they were measuring the number of campus and community social activities that they attended. And remember, they were coming to the study saying, this is something I want to change for me. I want to feel more connected. And I like this study, not because the results are like blowing you away, right? If you've done a quick visual inspection of the data, then they're only marginally successful here. The independent variable was they attended some weekly meetings, they had a peer mentor, et cetera, to kind of make them feel more comfortable. They practiced a few introductory skills type of thing. So it was marginally successful. Our top participant was the one that really wasn't so much for. But what I like about the study was just the overall approach that they took. They said, who would like to change their social relationships on campus? They used those participants, right? So you're already getting that high level of consent. And then they included these measures, but they also included this table over here on the side, which looked at social satisfaction by the participants in the study. And they asked them at the beginning their overall satisfaction with their college experience, their social experiences, the number of activities that they attended, and the availability of campus social events. And then they looked to see, after they did their interaction, did they see changes in those? And it's 100% subjective, right? It's just like any other social validity measure that we often include in our studies. And they saw slight upticks. You probably can't read it. They only saw, 1 or 2 point changes, right? But everyone did change in a positive direction, at the very least. And they weren't afraid to give us these data. So I like this study just because it feels very real to me, right? They're not sugarcoating with the results that they got, and it's all based in the client beginning to end, or in the participant beginning to end, right? And that to me is how we should be approaching these quality of life goals.
So the second little pie of the pie chart was academic excess and employability. And the Birchies, we call them the B&G. The B&G admit that academic success is probably not the best measure to measure quality of life, right? You can be really great at school, but not great anywhere else, right? Or the other way, right? Not great at school and great everywhere else. And so, they pull away from academic success and talk about more how can we find a satisfying vocation, and that's probably going to be more meaningful, right? So how can you find things that you like to do, that you're going to be doing all day long, 5 days a week potentially, right, for the rest of your life? And they focused on the key components of job satisfaction, teamwork, communication, being flexible. That's going to, if you have those types of things, that's going to predict a higher level of quality of life. And so I think that's a better way to think about it, as is broadening the scope of are you good at school, yes or no, but what can you do that you love doing that could serve as a vocation or a special interest that you could then, be part of a community for. And so here, I think Smith and colleagues in 2006 really talked about vocation person-centered planning. So instead of saying, okay, here are the vocational jobs that we have available to you, at high school or at early after high school, have people say, okay, what are you interested in, and why don't we try to find a job that will highlight those special interests? For example, we worked with a client who loved cars. This is common, right? Knew every car, every therapist that worked with him from when he was 3 years old till he was 22 years old, knew the kind of car, the year, the make, the model, and whether it was messy or not. Truth, mine was always messy. She's like, even the new car's messy. I'm like, yep, they're all messy. And so instead of trying to fit him into one of the vocational skills that they had offered, they reached out to the community, and he got a job at a car wash, right? So then he was gainfully employed, but got to hang out with his favorite thing all day long, cars, and talk to people about their cars. And other people also love their cars, turns out. The people that go to car washes a lot love their cars and love talking about their cars and the rims, right? I don't know much about cars, but I should. And so that was very fulfilling to him because he could gain access to the community and gain access to a community that wanted to talk about the things that he loved. Cars. He knew all the cars. They were very impressed. When things broke, they would ask him. He would exactly know, where to buy it, how much it was, where it was on sale, right? And so it was a valuable resource to that community. So another thing we could do is instead of looking at like a job per se, look at those special interests and expand on those special interests. So there was a study that looked at teaching photography skills to adults with developmental disabilities. They really liked being outside. They liked looking at the very fine-grained units of like a leaf and using that to enhance their special interests by taking pictures of those very fine-grained units, and then their overall satisfaction increased. They were then able to enter into a community of photographers and nature lovers, right? So if you post on Facebook and you put like an awesome picture, everybody responds, right? And that's another way that we can create community while also increasing quality of life and also maybe potentially making a job or a niche where you are going to be happy and fulfilled. And I say vocation, but I don't necessarily it doesn't have to be a paid vocation, right? Like, we all should be doing things that we love to do. And if you're not, get out of here, right? Do something that you love doing. Find ways to make your job your happy place. And I think that's what we should be doing with our clients. And Diana's going to wrap it up.
The third part of the pie was looking at family life. And this is, one of the areas here where I think this article makes it clear that we're talking about younger individuals because they focus on the fact that it's the whole family that needs to be experiencing a good quality of life. We can't just look at our young client because it's the family as a unit that's going to determine the quality of life for everybody there. If we are properly educating and supporting our families, then we should see decreased family stress and burnout. And the way that we might do this is by helping families with what they called life management skills. And they had a good list, and I have another good list on the next page too as well. We're talking about the well-being of the family, helping families identify that for themselves, and then moderating that as they need to hopefully de-stress, looking at adaptive coping skills, reframing negative thoughts, and identifying and utilizing resources. This is an area that I don't know about you, but a lot of folks I know don't necessarily target these types of things in their sessions with families, but I can see how families would greatly benefit from getting additional information related to this. The graph like the bar chart over here. On the right, I'm not going to like describe it to you in detail. I'm just showing it to you because some people did some survey, but it breaks down different types of coping strategies that they were presenting. Many of the families expressed that they were under a lot of stress at caring for their young child, or sometimes multiple children. They talked about the types of coping mechanisms that they used. And in this study, they were like comparing them to other families that didn't have a child with a disability, et cetera. But I mostly just wanted you to see that there's different ways you can kind of think about these types of coping strategies, right? So they talked about social strategies, having additional supports, reframing negative thoughts, like we said, spiritual supports, mobilizing, which had to do with accessing resources, and then passive, which was just not doing anything. So there's been some research out there supporting this, but not a ton, and certainly not in our area. And then the middle thing is, I found this, and it's from 1993, and it's kind of old, and I know you can't really see it, but I just loved it. So it was part of an overall parent training manual type of thing, but it had several sections in there that were a parent training series that families could go through, and I'll just tell you what some of the topics were. They started out with incidental teaching modules. We all know incidental teaching is a great way to learn language and practice skills at home. Then the next section was advocacy modules, so teaching parents about integration, knowing the laws, jargon that professionals might use, services that are available, and technology that was available. And then the next one was talking about general information modules, so teaching families about autism, typical child development, securing resources, balancing parent and personal time. And then under that was family issues, including relationships with grandparents, siblings, resources within the families, and special requests. And then the last section was maybe more the types of things that you might typically see, which was instructional packages on play skills, toileting, dressing, mealtime, etc. So you're like, oh yeah, that part I know, but all those other parts we should be working on, right? Imagine how much more supported and empowered a parent might feel if they had all of this background information or had a place to find it. And it's extremely overwhelming to enter into this world and not have any of this background information, right? So I just loved this. I know it's old, but it was like, that's so good. It's like all right there. So I added it for us to look at. And then the final piece of the pie was self-determination. And I love this area because it is not a lot of information out there on it, but it can be quite easily interpreted into operational definitions, right? And the types of things that we might be working on or could be or should be working on with our clients. So self-determination often gets broken down into kind of these three areas. Control, so teaching someone how to have control in their own life. And I did note that that might vary culturally, how much one expects or wants to have control. So we should also approach that sensitively. That's one piece of it. The next piece is choice. We already know, based on a lot of research, that humans prefer to have choices. They prefer also to have their behavior result contingently in whatever consequence follows it. But when given the opportunity, this is my favorite. Tiger et al., 2006. They did a study where they compared with little preschoolers. Preschooler, I am going to give you a paper plate with one M&M on it. You can have that one, red M&M. Or I'm going to give you a paper plate with 5 identical red M&Ms on it, and you can pick one, right? And they checked to see what did the preschoolers want. They all only got one red M&M, but which one did they want? This one, right? They wanted to pick the M&M themselves. Choice is really powerful, and it was reinforcing, right? They would work to have the choice. It's really, really powerful. There are lots of ways that we can build choice into our clients' lives, and we should look to do so. You can read Bannerman, 1990, if you want some ideas on that. But we also want to ensure that our clients know how to make a choice. For some clients, they may not have that experience and that background, and that it's okay to make a choice. And we want them to make the choice and not wait for a prompt, right? All of those pieces we need to ensure are present. And then the final piece of self-determination can be defined as personal autonomy. So your body is your own, right? That's sacred. You should be able to protect that and not have anybody mess with it. And you should have words, language, and communication so that others know that's the case. So this, again, could be broken down and taught in a lot of different ways. I've listed a few examples here, maybe for early language learners, right? We should be teaching dissent. I don't want to do that, and that's okay, right? We should be teaching folks how to say no and honor when they tell us no, that they don't want to do something. We should be teaching that if another kid comes along and takes your thing, right, don't just let them take your thing, that you can defend that. You can say, no, that's mine. I was playing with that, right? Defense of materials. And we can teach kids, and I know we often do, that I need space. Don't touch me right now. I need space. I need a break, etc. All of those are personal autonomy type of skills that we could, rather than just maybe incidentally approaching, have those be really clear-cut early goals for our clients that are going to empower them and increase their personal autonomy. There's not a lot of research in this area, and there's not a lot of research on how teaching these skills or the presence of these skills impacts quality of life. So this is something that is wide open and should be addressed. And then I just added in a slide here. This is a very early example of teaching some accept, reject responses by Sigafus and Dempsey, but I'm not going to go over those in detail because I'm going to give Rob a chance to talk.
If you listen to our show, you know that's very rare that I don't get a chance to talk. But I learned how to set up the microphone, so you know. So this is kind of our summary points, the dissemination station of the talk we're going to give, if you will, where we kind of wrap up with some disadvantages and some advantages of the work that's being done on quality of life. So we kind of talked about some of these already, but at the end of the day, we are still talking about some subjective measures, which might mean some folks in our field are a little dismissive of the importance. Can't see it, can't measure it objectively. Is it valuable or is it of value? Now, we hope that none of you out there, after listening to us discuss this, or maybe even before listening to us discuss this, would agree with that statement. But it doesn't change the fact that it is still a component of quality of life, that it is subjective. That also makes it difficult to measure. Not necessarily impossible, but it is one more hurdle in terms of our bringing more thought to the quality of life into the programming that we do with our clients. And if that's not enough, how we measure and what we choose to measure, we come up with some really elaborate, great system for measuring quality of life in one of the quadrants we discussed. Well, quality of life goals are going to change as time goes on. I'm sure the thing that was most important to all of you when you were in preschool or were an adolescent or were a young adult or an older adult were not the same. Maybe there was some things that were similar or close, but quality of life goals will change over time. So you can't just make one system of measurement and then, sit on your laurels about that. It's going to have to change as time goes on. And I would say one more that's not necessarily on our slide is that while we discussed a lot of research talking about the various components and parts of working on improving quality of life, there's not necessarily a cohesive plan of here's all the quality of life stuff you all need to know. There's no quality of life manual necessarily out there. There's some measurements, there's challenges with some of those, there's areas of focus and research that we can pull from, but I'm guessing, like all of you, it can be hard to go find research from every single different area and then pull it together into a cohesive whole. Finding the time to do all of that programming can be a bit limiting, which means it's something that we may not be able to do as effectively as we'd like. So again, that level of work, we hope continues on. Now, some advantages, however. We want to end with the advantages with all these cool cats up here on the slide. The nice thing about quality of life is that for once we're really talking about a holistic measure. We're thinking about our clients as full individuals rather than what are their deficits, what are their strengths even. Doesn't talk about the whole person, everything that makes them, or makes you, you. So inherently looking at quality of life, we are talking about that piece, which is often missing in a lot of our work. It's very inclusive in the sense that it takes into account what it is the individuals we work with, the people in their lives, the people that they hope to be in their lives are going to care about and value. So it's inclusive in a way that maybe just kind of going down a chart or going down one of our assessments and saying, here are the skills you're not so good at, and I'm going to work on these with you, is not. And also, just because something's hard to measure, I think we should see that as something that's exciting, something new that we can do to support our clients, rather than something hard or something that may not be easy, or maybe we won't come up with the best system. This is something that has value to everybody. Everybody is looking for a meaningful quality of life outcome, whether they're able to express it vocally or not. And when we are allies in our clients' goals, reaching that, we are doing something very important. It may not be the important that we learned about in grad school from all of the assessments and all the tools and all the research that's out there, but it is important to society at large, and more importantly, to the individuals that we have dedicated our careers to supporting and working with. I was going to say, usually I just kind of go on until the episode ends and we run out of recording space. But in this case, we A, only have so much time, and B, this is something that I know when preparing for this, Diana was very, very passionate about. But I guess I've been given the go-ahead to finish our last slide. And this is a good reference. So again, you're 90 years old, you're thinking back on your life. What are you going to look back on? Money? On fame? Or as our man Huey Lewis and the rest of the news would say, the power of love, which I think at the end when we talk about quality of life is really one of those intangibles that goes into almost all of the areas. So please do be thinking about that as you are working with the folks you support and thinking about what might be some goals that maybe you've given a little short shrift. So we have a lot of references here. So folks, I know the slides are available in the app, but if anyone wants to take a picture of some of the references so that they can do some of the deep reading themselves, I'll kind of leave this one and the next one up for a little bit. But in the meantime, we want to say thank you all very much for coming to our talk. Thank you to the Thompson Center for giving us a chance to present yet again on this subject that is very important to us. If you are able to stay around afterwards, or you're going to be here for tomorrow, please come check out. We have a little booth. We don't have like a lot of swag and stuff, but we do have some cool bookmarks. And for folks, while I know you're getting CEs from all the conferences you go to, for folks who are interested, our podcast does come out every week. If you thought quality of life's fun, but I'd like to hear you guys talk about another subject for about an hour, we got like 220 more little talks available in your phone right now, if you would like to. And if you're interested in getting CEs, we also are giving out some discount codes to folks if they come by and say hi, because Diana might not care as much about making a million new friends, but Jackie certainly does. So that is very important to us as well.
You guys are my friends.
Yeah. Yes, Diana's friends are all our podcast audience.
Come over here.
So I think I haven't gotten the... We're good on time? Oh, we haven't gotten the time. So if folks have... Oh, we're right on time? We have about 4 minutes, so we might have time for a question or two. But certainly if folks don't get a chance or don't want to share right now, our email is up there as well. So thank you all very much.